Oi, this is the Profanity Gnome, and I'm here to tell you that if you're under 13 years old, fuck off this video! Get the fuck off YouTube! Get your mama to get your dad's cock out of her ears and actually be a parent! This is for adults only! And for everybody else, enjoy the video. And don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below what you think, you fuck buckets. To stand out among the crowd, even if I gotta shout out loud, till mine is the only face that you see. Gonna stand out till you notice me. Okay, so after exchanging notes, we are now on the official hit list of the Disney Corporation. And thanks in part to you, we're now on Heaven's hit list as well. You know, when we started sailing around, do you imagine any of this going down? Is it weird to say it's not too far off? Yeah, and after that fight, Satan got pretty hurt. But he's still up and about now. Albeit under 24-hour hive mind surveillance thanks to Scrooge. He really did not like being left out of that adventure, did he? No, he did not. But speaking of adventures, it's going to be another one of those split adventures. So let's all draw straws to see which duck we go with. Oh, and this is the day of the only child. The episode begins with the kids. Haven't had a kid episode in a while, as Dewey is doing something, but Webby joins him with their new security bot. And when she asks where the others are, Dewey pretends to not know who she's talking about, which of course is the wrong thing to say to Webby, as she immediately thinks he's a spy. The boys join up and explain to Webby what's going on. Since they're of children of 3, every now and again they have an only child day, once a year. And this year, well, it just happens to fall on the date that Huey needs all 3 of them. But whatever. Being that they're always been in a set of 3, they're going to experience once what it's like to be an only one. Webby doesn't necessarily approve of this idea, but believe me, she didn't grow up in a large family of siblings. They need a break. So, now the story splits. So our 3-part adventure starts off with Huey as he's woodchucking, or rather lack of woodchucking, since not only is the Scoutmaster frickin' Launchpad for some reason, but because he doesn't have his 2 brothers with him, he can't earn his current merit badge that he really wants to earn. But fortunately, unfortunate for him, the Beagle Boys are there, and they plan on kidnapping him and ransoming him off for the fortune. So the Beagle Boys cheaply disguise themselves as woodchucks. And while this would have fooled the 1980s versions of the characters, they clearly see through the disguise. But Launchpad says you either work with them or you don't get the merit badge, and Huey decides, fuck it, merit badge is worth it. So we get a continuous stream of the Beagle Boys trying to trap Huey in a less than stellar trap, and Huey teaching him the right ways to set these traps. And they start hanging on every word he says, while the 3rd Beagle Boy is suffering through all of Huey's traps. He even encourages them to do better and improve. They tend to latch on to Huey because he's the first person they've ever been with to ever treat him with any sort of niceness and respect. They even start latching on to everything he says and following his orders blindly. Honestly, there could be a future with them in woodchuck work. But then the 3rd Beagle Boy comes around and says, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to make friends, you're supposed to kidnap him." In which the other Beagle Boys say, "No, we're not doing that, because we are going to be woodchucks from now on, not the Beagle Boys." And as Huey returns, he finds that they've kidnapped their own brother and said that Huey can be their brother from now on, because they like him more. And if they return to the junkyard, he'll never be lonely again. And of course, this freaks Huey out, as he doesn't realize the severity of what's happening. And of course, the 2 brothers are finally blindly following his orders with everything he says, which causes them, in a random series of circumstance, to fall down on a collapsing tree.
Meow, meow, meow.
Leslie, is that a wild boar or somebody else?
Meow.
The second part of the adventure takes place with Huey, as he wants to go make some rich friends with some other rich kids. So he visits another rich kid's house, and right away the tone feels off. While this is definitely the dreamscape of any 10-year-old little kid, with a treehouse that looks more like an amusement park or something straight out of K&D, again, something definitely feels off about this house. And then we get introduced to the reboot version of Doofus. Now, Louie tries to lay down the charms, but it's clear that Doofus doesn't seem all okay in the membrane, if you know what I'm saying. But he recognizes Louie as a friend, and, well, they just start having fun together and doing what the middle class think rich kids do all day. Bouncing on trampolines, paragliding into cotton candy makers, doing virtual reality, relaxing while actually relaxing in reality. And Doofus takes Louie to his room of expensive stuff and begins to start breaking it. Because it doesn't matter if people think you're crazy or if you're even actually crazy, so long as you got the money to cover it up. But when Louie starts taking a few swings at the wrong portrait, Doofus flips out. Because this particular portrait isn't just any old duck, but his gummy mama. And because of this, he starts having a meltdown, where Louie starts asking questions. As it turns out, the butler and maid of the household isn't actually a butler and maid. They're Doofus's parents. And, well, when Gamimama passed, Doofus inherited the entire fortune. And as time progressed, he went from a happy, loving child to a crazed, sadistic monster. And Louie sees, yep, time to exit out of this crazy household. But Doofus, well, he's not gonna let him. He is not gonna let him because now Louie is his property. And Louie hasn't been a good friend to Doofus all of a sudden. So he's gonna do something to him involving walnuts and an umbrella. I'm scared to think of what he could do with that, but thankfully, just when things are at their worst, Huey comes in with the Beagle Boys, and things are becoming a lot more hectic than what they previously were.
Must resist urge to discipline spoiled brat.
Well, the final part of the three-parter involves Dewey. Now, seeing the big shenanigans that everybody else has gotten into, it's only natural that Dewey has probably the biggest shenanigans. So what's his single child day all about? Pretending he's a late-night studio host and filming himself pretending he's a Jimmy Carr? Ugh. Of all the things, Dewey.
I swear there must be something written in the Geneva Convention that prevents us from having to experience this level of cringe. Just get to the part where we figure out whether or not he's the father!
Well, Dewey's late-night show impersonation, he gets visited by the security drone, which tries to guilt-trip him into being brothers again, but he sees through the con and sees Webby has taken over the security drone. And when Dewey calls her out on trying to scare and lie to him, Webby is like, I don't know what it's like to have a big family, and she just doesn't want them to be all separated from now on. Dewey reminds her that this is just one day where they could just be single children. It's not going to be permanent. Or maybe not, since all the hacking that Webby did caused the security drone to malfunction and thinks that they're all deadly intruders. So Dewey tries to fight it, only for it to run immediately, ironically, or coincidentally, to Doofus's house. So now that all three of the stories have converged onto each other, there's only one thing for the three siblings to do. Team up and deal with each other's problems. So that's what they all do. Each one of them takes care of the problems that the other one caused, in some way, shape, or form. Louis even managing to get all the Beagle Boys back together, and the three of them ended up escaping with minimal casualties, thankfully. And they all decide to go back home while Webby is singing the Dewey's Cringe Fest song, and yeah, he's gonna be tortured with that for a while. And that was Day of the Only Child. It was a good episode. I mean, if this was back in the 1980s, all three of the subplot episodes that the kids went on would actually have probably been their own episode stretched out 20 minutes. But we all see their predictability and know how they're going to end up, going back to the status quo. So it's kind of nice that they all just wrap up these stereotypical episodes, all wrapped up in a single bow, while still having a pretty funny premise. But this also does point out something that this series does way better than the original. Treats the boys as their own individual characters rather than just a match set. I mean, you really couldn't tell the difference between all three of the kids originally except for their shirt colors. But now they actually have personalities, their own interests, their own goals. And an episode like this only enforces that. But it's also good to see that not only do they have their own individual interests and goals, but they all still work together as a single unit, as brotherly love, since one can cause a problem, but the other can fix it in their own unique way. Yeah, the stories may have been predictable, but it's not about the predictability of the story, but the middle part of getting to the end. So with that being said, we're the Cartoon Gentlemen. We organized your chaos. See you next time. It's nice to have just this down-to-earth episode and not have big explosions or giant fight scenes or even any real story going on. Just a classic episode. What do you think? You know, you're a really good listener.
Can I please have a little bit of personal space?
It's the Queen's orders. He wants to know everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Guess not.
To stand out among the crowd,
Even if I gotta shout out loud, till mine is the only face that you see. Gonna stand out
till you notice me.